All right. Well, good morning, guys. Just make sure we are hitting the airwaves, as it were. Says we are. But I always like to check, just to be sure.
There we
Yep,
go.
there we go. Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome, everyone,
Good morning.
to this week's episode of Caffeine and Crusade. So, we asked a bunch of questions in the Discord about what do you guys want to talk about. So we kind of wanted to do this as like a, you know, Q&A roundtable kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're getting, there's new Blood Angels are coming. There's the Imperial Agents are coming. Death Watch is dead as an army. So it's a lot of interesting things. Death Watch. Now I know a lot of people are probably. I'm sorry for the Death Watch players out there, uh, but I'm also not sorry because this is the way Death Watch should have always been. They should always have been. You can take a couple of kill teams in your whatever list, your other Imperium list, because in the lore that's how they operate as small squads, kill teams, right? They don't operate as an army. They're not an army. That's not what their purpose is. So I'm really excited to be able to potentially take a Death Watch squad in my Black Templars. I think that'd be cool. We can also ally in a squad of Grey Knight Terminators,
Yep.
which is interesting. So a lot of interesting things coming up. I think the Blood Angels Codex will be interesting to see because they are most similar to us. In terms of like what sort of units we can expect, like what sort of changes we can expect. I think when we get our codex, so exciting times here in Pariah Nexus.
New missions. Hopefully y'all have been playing some games in the new Pariah Nexus. We'll kind of talk about this a little bit here in the stream. There's a lot of questions about that, and I feel like we should address some of the elephants in the room as far as the new meta goes. Just helping some new
Elephants.
players, that type of thing. So
Yeah,
it should be a good couple hours.
yeah.
If you see some random going ons in the back, I have some visitors. So I'm in a different part of my home. So if you see a kid flash by, I apologize.
so so yeah, what do you want to start with, Bob? Do we want to pull up some of those questions we asked in the Patreon channel of
Yeah.
ye old Discord? Speaking of which, if you're interested in our Patreon, we've got a lot of great benefits. You can get a unique role, access to a unique Discord channel, within our server. You can get free stuff, free shirts, free dice, access to our exclusive Patreon dice, which is pretty neat. So yeah. So check us out, and we greatly appreciate all of our patron supporters. So Tim Burrows asks, could you guys touch on why Grimaldus doesn't work with Sword Bros, as isn't a 5 plus and full rerolls good for Sword Bros? Sure, that's a great question. Because I often see a lot of new players put him with Sword Bros, and I'm like, it's not the best option. So Grimaldus, first of all, is a 4-man squad that attaches to Sword Bros. So that limits their ability to be transported by mostly anything. You could theoretically fit him and a 10-man into a Land Raider Crusader, but that's it. And Grimaldus's buffs are such that He really benefits from being with a gigantic block of something, namely Primaris Crusaders. Um, and while his buffs are good for Sword Bros, the Field of Pain is nice. The full rerolls are nice. Uh, the the big one of the big things about Sword Bros is not always necessarily what the character does for the Sword Bros, but what the Sword Bros do for the character. +1 damage is massive, and against anything but 1 wound models, you're going to be taking that over the +1 attack. And that makes characters like the Emperor's Champion and High Marshal Helbrecht, who have a sweep attack with a ton of attacks, their sweep attacks are normally damage 1. Now they're damage 2. That's really disgusting, and it makes the Emperor's Champion's precision attacks damage 4. So you're pairing the Sword Bro with the character as much for what the character does for the Sword Bros, maybe more so for what the Sword Bros do for the character. And they don't do much for Grimaldus. He's not very good in melee. His servitors are, balls in melee. That's the main reason why you want to run him with a large block of infantry that can benefit from that free 5-up Feel No Pain or the advance in charge and the full rerolls to hit. Because the Sword Bros, they even like with the Emperor's Champion, like he doesn't give any buffs to Sword Bros at all, but they make him so much better, and that's why he's a really good take for them. So, anything you want to add to that, Bob?
Yeah, it's going to be also a thing about rolls. So Grimaldus is based on his buffs. It's more behooves him to be more of the more durable unit, something that can be a force multiplier for a longer period of time. It's not that the Sword Brethren aren't an okay unit for him to be with. The problem is they want to be fast, and you can kind of make them fast if you do the advance and charge, but then you lose your Feel No Pain, and then they're just going to be targeted down and killed. So when you have that Crusader squad that they're attached to, there's more bodies most likely, because why put a Grimaldus with a 10-man, but more bodies to absorb the hits, and they're really not there to do a metric ton of damage, but they can, because you have so many chain swords there and power fists. But it's that speed factor. You want the Sword Brethren to get across the board quickly, so that often means you need to have a transport, and they want to do spike damage, as much damage as possible on that charge, and do what you need to do, because chances are you're probably going to lose them after that, so you need to do your damage right off the top.
Yeah, so they don't want to be walking.
Yeah, they're going to be walking with Grimaldus, so that's problematic.
Yeah. Yep. Great question, though. So what else you got, Bob? Where do you want to start as far as our Patreon questions?
We can start right at the top. So what I did was I was like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? Here's an opportunity we can kind of catch up, because we've been having a lot of new player questions, and we've tried to answer them, tried to put out a couple of videos recently to how to start, that type of thing, so that we can kind of help the newer players, because there's been kind of a new influx into the chapter. So one of the questions I asked, or the question I asked, is the topics, and one Patreon member asked, I only have a cheeky suggestion, like, why is Gladius Detachment overrated? So I'm only going to comment on it simply because I think that I want to be fair and answer everyone's questions, but I think Gladius right now is the best option for us. There has been a lot more people playing Firestorm lately, and it has been seeing some success. But there's also, I feel like, a large resurgence into the Righteous Crusader now that Ironstorm is gone. and we've been seeing a lot of people have some success with the Righteous Crusaders. So that is positive news. We've had a lot of top 5 finishes in the last couple of weeks. Um, no wins that I saw, but those were players that were using Righteous Crusaders. So the question is, and another question that popped up in our Discord is the vow choice, and
Yeah.
is uphold the most important vow to take? And I honestly don't think it is necessarily anymore
Before
the
we get
auto
into
take.
that, Bob, can I touch on something with Gladius?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's important, even though I think and who was it that asked that? Let me go
No,
back real quick. I think it was
Grimdahl.
Grimdahl, yeah, and I think he was halfway kidding, but
Yes.
I do want to seriously answer the question because there are I see a lot of people, especially on Facebook, on the Facebook groups. There's a couple of Black Templar
Mhm.
Facebook groups, and I see a lot of people ask about other detachments, and I see multiple responses of people going, "That's heresy. Don't play that." You know what I mean? Like, and eh, it's not really heresy. Like, those detachments are available to us, and Gladius works very well with some of the synergies that we have. I mean, being able to get Lance and the the extra AP and that sort of stuff on the charge with that strat. There's a lot of really good buffs that go with Gladius, and it does something for us that Righteous Crusaders doesn't, and that's it gives us some synergy with shooting units because we have no synergy at all with shooting units. So it gives us uh, a bit of that extra oomph, right? With some different tools, not necessarily better, but different tools to use in melee. And so, I know it's like people look at it and think, oh, it's the Ultramarines detachment. But it's really just the like jack of all trades detachment. Like it has stuff with that's good with shooting. It has a couple of movement tricks. It has stuff that's good with melee, and our special units really synergize well with those melee buffs. More so than a lot of other chapters because like the generic Space Marines, they don't have access to anything that's even half as good as Sword Bros. The best they got is Blade Guard, and Blade Guard are okay, but they don't compare to Sword Bros. Sword Bros damage output with Hellberg the Emperor's Champion is so absurd that it's like nothing in the Codex compares to that. So when you take a detachment that has some good buffs in melee and add in our flavor, it makes us that much better. So, to your point, Bob, I want to mention I pulled up Stat Check, and we have climbed up. I remember we started Pariah Nexus. Everyone was concerned that BT were trash because we were down in like the 30% win. We were like 39% win rate when we first started Pariah Nexus. We've climbed back up. We're at 48% now as a faction. So we're right in that Goldilocks zone, just a little bit lower than half, which is fine. I don't want to be up there in the 55 plus zone where we're in danger of being nerfed. So, but just to kind of give some stats, I'm throwing out Iron Storm and Firestorm because neither of them have nearly enough games. They're not even triple digit games to be considered for anything. Righteous Crusaders obviously always has the most number of games 225 games played so far, 43 different players. It's at 45%. So that's solid for that detachment. Gladius is a little higher, but fewer games played. It's at 84 games played, 52% win rate. So it's not like Gladius is like 70% win rate and Righteous Crusaders is terrible. They're pretty close, but I do think Gladius is a little bit better. I agree with Bob. So anyway, we can go back to whatever the next thing, unless you have something else to add.
Yeah, I can add in there because there was talking about a tournament win with an all horde list, and
Uh-huh.
I hadn't seen that one yet. So if Auspex has done that, um,
So
I missed that one.
a caveat with that,
It is
that
WDC.
is WTC, who basically plays with homebrew rules because they don't know how to play 40k. They have some of the most bizarre rulings that just go fly straight in the face of Raw that I have ever seen. They're just making stuff up for their own tournament because it's, I think, the only way that they can feel like they can be relevant. So take that with a grain of salt. It's not, they're not playing 40k like real 40k. They're playing homebrew 40k in some cases because some of those rules are just jacked. So keep that in mind. But it is cool to see that 100 infantry list won a tournament. So
Yeah, and at the end of June, we also, right after Pariah Nexus, a couple weeks after, there was also a win with Righteous Crusaders. But they used a kind of a hybrid Sword Brethren list. There was a 10-man Sword Brethren, Land Raider Redeemer, and then it had 2 smaller squads of Sword Brethren plus 3 Assault Marine squads. So it was a hybrid MSU
it's
smash
also
list.
it was also in Texas, and I know. Shout out to my buddy Jag in Texas. They have a very weird meta. It's not the standard meta. They have very interesting, shall we say, terrain setups where some of those like weird things like walking a 10-man sword bro squad can work. So it's great that he won a tournament, a pretty big tournament there too. And it's awesome, but just know that their meta is definitely a little weird. So if that list seems like, boy, this is out of the ordinary, that's why he was playing to his meta, and he had great matchups, and he played correctly for the meta he's in, and that's important, right? And this is something that Jag and I have talked about a lot. Is the things that I know work well don't necessarily work well for Jag because he's in that meta too, and it's you got to learn what's going to work in your meta, especially your local meta. And if you're really only playing in your LGS, or small RTTs, you got to know what's going to be good for your list in your meta. What works, what doesn't. So something to keep in mind, for new players.
Yep. And since we're kind of on the topic, because that was another question, we can kind of skip around a little bit here. It's really kind of talking. A lot of people wanted us to really touch on list building in the Pariah Nexus world. So we can kind of talk about that since it's kind of like the topic we're kind of feeding on right now. Is, why was that horde list successful? So yes, WTC does have some strange rulings and it makes it a little bit different on it, but you can kind of extrapolate that at a bigger outside looking in. Why was it successful? So we're kind of shifting away a little bit from the trade necessity in the mission rules and secondaries. I know that we did not get a Pariah Nexus mission review and secondaries out to you guys. Unfortunately, we lost the video. We had some errors with the video, so we were not able to recover that footage that we recorded for you. But hopefully a lot of you have gotten a chance to look at it and see it at this point. But what we can kind of say is troops are important, but not super important. And the emphasis is a lot less on having to guard your home objective. Now, it's about being adaptable, fast, durable, and being adaptable to the mission deck. Because honestly, it's much different than what it was before. There's a lot more randomness to the missions. You have to potentially kill something. You have to potentially get across the board. So it was list building with that in mind. I can see why a 5-man or 20-man list kind of was successful because it's 5 units. They're very durable. You can advance them reasonably quickly across the board and start scoring. I haven't seen that exact list. But
I'm
it
trying
looks
to
like
find it.
okay. It's all horde, 5 20-man PCSs, 2 scouts, and all the big name characters and lone op LT. So there you go. So you got a lone op LT probably sitting on your home objective.
Where'd you find the list, Bob? Is it in
Carlos put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I was looking for the video on Hospex's channel.
So yeah, you probably have a couple of those characters. So Grimaldus and Helbrecht leading those two. So those are your big damage dealers. Your scouts are playing the objective game, and your lone op LT. Now, do I think it's going to work after next weekend? Absolutely not.
It might work in your local meta.
Yeah.
I would probably, if I were going to run that list, I would probably split up one of those 20-man PCSs into 2 10-mans just to have the extra unit. Because even if you have all the big name characters, that's only 3 leaders. So you got a couple squads there that you could break up into smaller squads. That's what I would do, just to have the extra units to be able to sit on objectives and do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it having played now in Pariah Nexus. So maybe we'll go back and actually talk about the objectives a little bit, a month in, and kind of do a recording on it and kind of retouch on some of those things to get that out to you guys. Might be something that we have to put on the docket because there's been a lot of people talking about it. But in general, there's less importance on defense and trading in this mission pack, straight up. So that results in changed lists. So the lists that are being really successful across the board in all the different armies are units that are having big blocks of nasty units that can do some damage.
Yeah.
Versus the more MSU styled lists that I typically favor. Now, are they going to be worse off? No, I still think MSU is going to be just fine and have proven to be just fine because there's a lot of top 5 finishes with them. But you're starting to see those 20-man Primaris Crusader squads. You're starting to see the 10-man Sword Brethren with Helbrecht and Lieutenant show up in high finishes where they were not in Leviathan. So it's something that's really kind of important. You need to be able to project big damage across the board. As long as you're fast and able to get there, that's something that you can do.
So that kind of brings us back to what you started to talk about earlier, is the vows. If you're going to run Righteous Crusaders, for most of Leviathan, the default was uphold. But we're hearing a lot of talk, even from top tournament players like Orion, our good friend David, who is not running uphold as much or even at all anymore. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that, Bob.
All right, so I don't necessarily think you need to run uphold anymore. Like I mentioned, there's more emphasis needed on being able to do damage. I don't necessarily think that uphold, while it's still good and adds a bunch of durability, we can spike our damage with something like accept any challenge to give ourselves sustained. And I think I like that a little bit better now into the meta that we're seeing. Both in larger horde style lists, whether you're running blocks of Terminators or 20-man Primaris Crusader squads, because it just ups their damage a little bit, which is something that we really kind of want in our detachment for Righteous Crusaders. And we honestly have other ways to give ourselves a little bit of durability if we need it. Like Grimaldus can give us that in select ways. Terminator Chaplain can give us a little bit extra durability. There's ways around it. We can still have a durable unit and be able to spike our damage with accept is something that is nice, especially with these newer codexes that have some really durable, really tough units that we need to just be able to push through to get those secondaries, those primaries in our favor. So I say that there is play for accept any challenge. I don't necessarily like going with suffer. If you need it, you can always use the stratagem to get into it if you need to with those character-led units, which honestly is probably the only time you're really going to want to use it anyways when you have a character attached. But that's kind of the thing there. I think it's accept any challenge is definitely viable, and it also allows your less close combat units to be somewhat viable. I see it mentioned in the chat somewhere. I'm scrolling up and missing a little bit here. Someone mentioned scouts. So that's giving scouts something instead of having the guns. Yep, you certainly can spike their damage as well. Just in general, anything that we particularly have in our list that you're going to be taking for whatever reason will benefit from accept any challenge. So it's something that we don't have any negatives for it anymore. So obviously, so the last couple of years, so we've gotten kind of out of that mindset now that where it's an okay take. And traditionally, we've always been like, oh, Field of Pain is always just the best thing. Well, it may not be now. So we need to be able to put a bunch of damage, and I think it's a viable option, honestly. Yep.
Thank you. I'm talking on mute, so Bob can hear me because we're on Discord. Sorry, guys. I was clearing my throat, and so I put it on mute because I didn't want you to have to hear that. And then I was talking on mute. So anyway, what I was saying is, it's you can tech into the Feel No Pain, and because we still have your most important squads are going to have leaders anyway, so you're able to have that Feel No Pain on those squads when you need it. But it's a huge sustained hits is a huge damage buff for your unled squads. Things like Primaris Crusaders, like you're running that 10-man, squad for the scouts ability, right? I just did the math on Unit Crunch, and it's like a 26% increase in damage. So you're looking at like 14 to a standard Marine body, you're looking at 14 wounds versus 11. So with no other buffs, and that only goes up when you get like things like Oath involved and some of that stuff. So I think sustained is definitely a little bit better than having lethal, especially because on our squads that we really need lethal on, like sword bros, to target big, huge, scary things like knights and monsters. we're probably taking either you can use the forget the name of the strat now, but use the strat to tech into lethal, or you can have a lieutenant like with Helbrecht. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely an option. And actually, probably I would lean more into it. And I saw a comment. It's you really kind of want to pick it against the army. That's one of the benefits. You can select it before the game, right?
You can select it after you've deployed. That's when you select it. So you can see how they deployed and go from there. So you really get like the maximum amount of information possible when you go to select your vow, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. And I saw somewhere up there. Forgive me, I'm kind of just skimming real quick. Azuma looks like. Yeah. So you mentioned that hold is still the best when you're using non-melee focus on your list versus running more of the choppy boys for accept. So that's definitely the case. Typically, you're not going to see a lot of shooting in a Righteous Crusaders, though. You're going to be more apt to take the Gladius detachment at that point. I do think that the opportunity for damage potential is higher in Gladius simply because you can play the game more efficiently in both shooting and close combat a little bit better because you have fire discipline in Gladius. Does spike some damage, but Righteous Crusader definitely does have play. It's being proven right now. I think the biggest takeaway, if we're not going to take anything else away from this video, is you need to start looking at your lists and see, okay, the missions are all about, well, a vast majority of them, honestly, are about killing your opponent, whether it be killing more than your opponent or killing them off an objective. So it's very important that you're killing your opponent. Then you have to have the durability to survive the rebuttal because your opponent's trying to do the same thing to you.
Yeah.
And having that speed to get across the board to get to those hard to reach things, whether it be a quarter or an objective that's kind of far away, you're going to need those pieces, whether it be scouts, assault intercessors, jump pack assault intercessors, those little pieces. Now, we do have something that's coming out next weekend that is going to play a wrench in a lot of this because you're going to see assassins come back. Actually, you're probably going to see all of them in a list. But one that two of them that I'm kind of afraid of is the Vidicaire, because he is just going to kill one of your characters every turn. So you're going to have an answer for that. So Helbrecht is going to die if you're placing or facing a Vidicaire. That's just what it is. So you haven't seen the rules. Basically, the long and short of it is he has a D3+3 rifle. So the lowest he's going to do is 4 damage. But he hits on 2s.
Yep.
That he can reroll 1s.
Strength 8, AP 3, D3 plus 3 damage.
Yep, and any wound he does is devastating. So you get no invulnerables. So, and I think if they're playing the detachment, I think don't quote me because I haven't seen the rules, just the reviews, but I think I remember seeing that there's a strat saying that you can reroll wounds too with him in their detachment.
The gun does have dev wounds, but he doesn't get it all the time. It's only once per battle. It's the shield breaker, same ability as before. Once per battle. Each time this model makes an attack with that weapon, add 1 to the wound roll, and any successful wound ignores or scores a critical wound.
There we go.
He does ignore lone op, so your lone ops are not safe. But yeah, he's definitely pretty mean as far as that.
And he's the cheapest of them all. which is 105 points in the
Well,
codex, but we'll see
we
how
don't know what points
that
are. Yeah.
shakes out.
I never look at codex points at all. They're all completely irrelevant. So just wait for the thing to drop.
The other one that is kind of scary is the Urvisor. He can get across the board, turn 1, and light you up. So you will have to screen if you have this guy on the board. If you're not using him to kill the other Urvisor. Because let's be honest, literally he has a 24-inch movement plus charge first turn. So
He's got. Well, he scouts 9. Once per battle in your movement phase. Before it makes a normal move, it does until the end of the turn. Adds 6. Yeah, so once per game he can add 6 to his movement, and he scouts 9. So yeah, so that's total of 24. It also adds 3 to his melee weapons. 3 attacks to his melee weapons, which makes him 9 attacks, hits on 2, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2, with precision, sustained hits 3, anti-infantry 3 plus. That's kind of disgusting.
Yep.
He's got to be super expensive. There's no way that. So he also has deadly demise. Why does he have deadly demise?
He's a hypersonic tactical nuclear warhead.
Yeah, pretty much. He's also he can also advance and charge. So yeah, you're gonna have to screen him out. Put a cute little squad of scouts in front of him, and make him eat scouts instead of, something valuable. I was hearing talk about the Calidus being able to come in within 3 inches or something, but I didn't really look too much into it. And looking at her data sheet, I don't see anything like that. She can deep strike. She can be picked up and put back down within 9, but I don't see 3 inches. So maybe one of you guys in the chat knows and can enlighten us on how they were talking about doing that, because I don't see it on her data sheet. So, but yeah, we're gonna definitely see. We're definitely gonna see some more assassins. I know we're gonna get asked about Deathwatch squads and Grey Knights, because you can take a Grey Knight Terminator squad now, and I know people are gonna ask because in the old 4th edition Codex, you could take Grey Knights as allies. People are gonna be like, "Well, should we take a Grey Knight Terminator squad?" And I don't know. They're not half bad. Let me pull up their data sheet. You can only take 5 guys. But, standard Terminator stat line. So, tough 5, 3 wounds, 2 up, 4 up. They are OC2, just base. So, that's pretty good. They come with Nemesis Force weapons, which are 4 attacks, 3 to hit, strength 6, AP 2, damage 2, so that's not terrible. They have Hammerhand, which is a filthy witch power. Each time this unit makes a charge move until the end of the turn, melee weapons equipped by this model's unit have the lethal hits ability. That's pretty sweet. You can take a incinerator, silencer, or psi cannon. I think the psi cannon is probably the best. It's 3 shots, strength 8, AP 1, damage 2. But the incinerator's not bad either. It's the flamer, instead of their stormbolter or whatever. And then one guy can swap his stormbolter for an ancient's banner, and one guy can one guy who he doesn't swap it. He just has to have a stormbolter. And then one guy can swap his stormbolter for a Nartheseum. So the Nartheseum is in your command phase, you can return 1 destroyed model, excluding characters, to the bearer's unit. So that's pretty dope. And then the Ancient's Banner is add 1 to the OC of the models in this unit. So now they're OC 3. So depending on how much they cost, that might be pretty cool. Some Grey Knights. Bob looks
Yeah, it was in the
skeptical.
fourth edition. It was in the fourth edition codex, but I'm like,
I don't know.
we'll see.
Maybe,
We'll see.
maybe.
I've been known to use some allies from time to time across the years.
So
Random side question, so I don't want to forget. Downtown Stabby asked, I just got done painting my first combo patrol. Sadly, my LGS is going out of business, and all the Warhammer kits are 60% off. They only have 2 Land Raiders for sale. Land Raider and the Land Raider Crusader. I'm dumb, don't know which the better option for BT. Sorry for the random question. Nope, you can ask any questions you want. That's what the point of this is.
yep.
To be able to chat with us real time. So I would honestly go with the Land Raider Crusader, because if I remember correctly,
It comes with the
also
Redeemer
has
bits.
the Redeemer kits.
Yep. I actually have one that I've yet to build right here. So, yeah.
Unless you have to make sure, check the box, because if it has the really old kit, which I guess is still a
Make sure it's
possibility,
this one.
Yeah.
Make sure it's this one.
They used to sell it just the Crusader by itself.
Yeah.
So make sure it is
the new kit.
the combo one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you're clever, you can magnetize it. Unfortunately, Crusaders are not super great right now, which is why I have one that's fresh in the box that I still have to build, because I have 2 Land Raider Crusaders, because back in the day, they were the king shizzle that you wanted to run for Black Templars. And now they're not so much anymore. And I don't own a Redeemer. I own 2 Crusaders. So, you can never have too many Land Raiders, right? If 2 is good, an Armored Spearhead of 3 is better, right?
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, definitely go with the Land Raider Crusader version. Yeah. Now, there is play for the Land Raider, though. I want to make that noted.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I have seen some people use them to good effect, because the Godhammer Lascans are a decent anti-vehicle option, and you can still advance and charge on it depending on the unit that you're putting in it.
It's not as fast. It loses 2 inches.
It's not quite as fast, but you can still, it's a decent movement. Just make sure that you are notating the new pivoting rules.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're pretty. It could be decent, but most people use the Redeemer because you can plop it right in the center board, and it's an Overwatch threat.
The Flamestorm cannons are
ridiculous.
really gross. Just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar with them, they are 12-inch range, D6 plus 3 shots, torrent, so they auto hit, strength 6, AP 2, damage 2, ignores cover, and they got 2 of them. So, and the Land Raider is a big body, and you shoot from any point on the Land Raider, not just the weapons. Those days are thankfully long gone. Because as I always like to say, 40K is not a simulation. It's more narrative. So it's okay that the track of your Land Raider is firing, meltas and flame shots.
Okay, so let's see what we got here. We kind of talked about Pariah Nexus and why we're changing the lists up a little bit. So if you want to experiment with those big blocks of Hellbrick bombs, go for it, because I think they're more viable than they were in Leviathan. So 20-man Crusader squads, viable. So
who doesn't like a good brick of angry
one thing
Crusaders?
I would say though is make sure you keep some mobility in your lists. So you need scouts still. They're still just as important. Inceptors still important. Jump pack, assault intercessors. So
very good unit.
Okay, so yeah, there was another talk about the WTC list where it was 100 Crusaders. We kind of talked about that. Um,
Let me
but
ask you this, Bob. If you're going to include a 20-man brick, presumably with Grimaldus, because they just begged to have him, what else are you going to uh, build around? Like what other units are you going to use in that list? Because you got to kind of build around that because it's a hefty block of unit of points.
are we going full skew? Or are we going like we're just
No,
going
let's
to
say
take
you
that as the
just you
centerpiece?
want to have a 20-man block in your list, and um, yeah, it doesn't have to be full skew. I think a lot of people uh, want to be able to run that, but not necessarily have to like make like a tilt skew list or something that's gonna be weird. You know what I mean? Or only work in a couple of circumstances.
Okay, so I think that you have to take. I'm biased, so take this with a grain of salt on it. I don't think it's. Well, I personally think they're essential, but infiltrators, one unit infiltrators, I still think is pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially with the assassins coming back. Then after that, then you need to have 1 to 2 units, preferably 2 units of scouts. I think that is like absolutely bare minimum critical. You need to have that in your list to play the game. Um, we saw that even in apparently in the skewed list. So that is a way to right away get up the board with their infiltrate, get in position, take a couple of pot shots with their sniper, picky up them, get on to another part of the board, wherever you need to in the next couple turns. So they give you that mobility, adaptability that you
Mm-hmm.
really need. Then I think you need to strongly consider either a unit or two of inceptors or sometimes even in addition to jump assault intercessors. I think the split units are better, but I can
What do
see
you
the
mean by
argument for
split
having the
units?
10.
Oh, you're talking
So
about
like instead
five
of
mans?
five
Would
mans
you
instead of 10.
run 2 units of assault interceptors and inceptors?
You could do that, but I think that is a better. Uh, you got to have something killy. So those units are not very killy.
Right. Or
So
more action monkey, clear chaff type of things.
yeah, so you need something else in the list because you're going to be burning up points real fast with all of those things. So the
So
jump pack, the jints are not the slang term jints, jump assault intercessors. Um, they are not very expensive, so
yeah,
you can
they
take a bunch of
are.
them.
Da, 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 da.
95,
Is it 95?
I think,
No, they're 80.
something like so
80.
cheap. They're dirt ball cheap. However, the inceptors are not.
No,
So
they are
I think
definitely
you have
not.
to be a little bit more strategic with their choice. One unit, maybe two. If you take two, then you're really kind of
I think taking two
hurting
is
yourself
pushing
in
it.
points.
Would you take one of each? That offends my
I
symmetry sensibilities.
no, no, I wouldn't.
So, if you're gonna pick one or the other, what are you going with?
I would probably go with the jints.
Yeah. So we got
Again, jints are jump assault intercessors. That's kind of my slang term for it. So
yeah.
the new players don't yell at me. What's a jint? That's what it is.
Yep. So that's 790 points. I'm building this list on the
Oh,
app.
he's
I'm
building
that's
one right
yeah. I'm
now as
just
we
popping
speak.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
And then we're gonna
you
hold you
have.
to it that this is the greatest list ever created.
Oh, man. So I still like Sword Brethren.
Of course,
Um,
gotta have sword bros. How many
So it,
dozens squads of sword bros are we running?
okay, so if you're going to be running a block of 20, I almost think that you need to have a block or a missile of some sort to kind of counteract that, give you a different. So you don't have to go with the full 10 man, but you can go a 5-man, Lieutenant Helbrecht, the whole
Mm-hmm.
9 yards.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, this reminds me of a question that someone asked earlier, and I meant to come back to it, and I didn't. I apologize for that. I believe it was. Let me find it. It was Carlos who asked. I prefer 2 by 5 man sword bros and impulsors with characters. Is that even viable anymore? 100%. It's still just as good as it was, even with the price increases on impulsors and sword bros. Still 100% worth it. So.
Yeah.
Um, we gotta, I assume, include Helricht and the LT in there, right?
Yep.
So let me grab an LT. Now, how do you like your LT, Bob?
My current one is to take the Storm Shield version,
Why do you like the
Master
Storm Shield
Crafted.
version?
Just give them invulnerable saves because scouts are a thing.
Yeah.
You have Eldar Rangers out there. I don't want them to
So,
die.
so I'm a bit opposite on that. I like the Power Fist guy, and I'll tell you why. When he's in a squad with Helbricht, if they're gonna shoot at somebody with precision, it's probably gonna be Helbricht because Helbricht is disgusting. Plus, when you get that delicious Power Fist on there, and then you can slap the. Whoops, I'm in the wrong detachment here. We want detachment. I assume we're looking at this as Righteous Crusaders, right?
Yeah.
So let me go back to the lieutenant. I like Perdition's Edge on him if you have the points for it, because it gets him +1 strength and +1 AP, right? So now, if we look at him and see his Power Fist, so now he's got a Power Fist that's Strength 9, AP 3. Then you put him with Helbricht and Sword Bros. Helbricht gives another +1 strength. So now it's Strength 10, AP 3, and the Sword Bros give +1 damage. So now you've got 4 attacks that hit on 2s, Strength 10, AP 3, 3 damage. That's mean. So if you can spare the 15 points, 100% worth it. Um, so after we include our Helbricht missile with our Black Templar thing. Where's my dedicated transports? There we go. We are looking at, we got 1,230 points total. Afternoon, Neil. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
So then after that you have a core. So it's really just kind of whatever you kind of want to build in there. So
I think
honestly,
we need some
I don't.
guns.
So I was just gonna say is like
Need some shooting.
while you don't necessarily need it to be successful in Pariah Nexus, I don't think. So that was another thing I was going to mention. I don't think you necessarily need guns anymore.
Really?
Yeah, they're
Guns are out. They're bad. Terrible. Don't take any. You heard it here first, everyone. Bob said, don't take any guns.
no, I don't necessarily think you really need that to be successful.
I know. I'm just messing with you. It's too much fun.
But I don't want to misconstrue, these players like, oh, I'm gonna take like everything.
All
No,
100%
oh,
melee. Not a single. Not even. I'm not even modeling my guys with bolt pistols. They're done. Guns are out completely.
chainsaws on everything.
Double
Not even.
chain swords on everything. It can't even take that option. Anyway, so
But I
yeah,
still like them. I
I
still like
still
the
like
Hazard
having
Rifle.
some shooting too, and I think, um, honestly, I still like the Vindicator. I think it's really good for its points.
Yep, that's solid.
So is there
Uh,
Ballistus.
Ballisticers are good. Eradicators are good still.
Mm-hmm. What do you
If
feel we need in this list another sword bro squad?
leave your guns at home. In this particular list, I don't. I mean, you can. You could do some additional ones. I don't think it's necessary to rock a list like this. So I've seen a lot of people recently that have been the top 5 finishes. So I've seen just the one unit. Now, if you really want to balance it out, you could take another 20-man Primaris Crusader squad because we are a little bit thin as far as troops go. So we
I
just have the
think,
one troop.
yeah. I almost feel like if we're going to take more Crusaders, we should take 2 10-mans. It gives you more units to do things with, and they're still pretty decent in their own way, as far as melee is concerned.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, what do we have? We have a total of 770 points. So, what do you want to add, Bob? If you were going to take this to a local tournament, what would you take?
You have 770 points, so I would probably take a couple of 10-man units.
Crusaders?
I would take, yep.
Do we want any, like, intercessors, sticky objective thingies?
In a non-MSU list, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. So now we have 40 Crusaders on the board.
Yeah,
It does sound delicious. I have to build more Crusaders so I can field this many.
Did you already put in the Vindicator?
I did not. Let me do that. Vindicator. All right, we still have 315 points left. That's a spicy amount of points.
Okay, so mentally, so we have
so
the
you want
20
me to run?
man.
You want me to run through the lists?
Yep.
Yep. So we got Grim Grams with a 20 block. We've got High Marshal Helbrecht with his lieutenant and sword bro missile and an impulsor. We have 2x10 Crusader squads, 2x5 assault intercessor squads, infiltrators, 2x5 scout squads, and a vindicator.
Okay, so we have the mission playing, kind of touched on. We have 2 units that can do a decent amount of killing.
Borb says more Crusaders. We already got 40.
So I feel like, though, if we lose the Redemptor...
We don't have a Redemptor in this list.
Oh, you don't. You just have the 5-man and the Helbrecht. Well, we need that Redemptor in there.
You want a Redemptor?
Yeah, you have to put them in the Redemptor.
You mean the Redeemer?
Or the Redeemer, yeah.
I had them in an
Not
impulsor.
The Redemptor. Sorry.
I had them in an impulsor.
I'm sorry. I skipped over that.
You did.
Mentally ignored.
Yeah, exactly what I said. So you don't like them in the impulsor?
No, not in this list.
Okay, so let's get rid of the impulsor then. That brings us very short on points then, because the Redeemer is quite expensive. Where'd it go? Redeemer.
So it gives us 100 points about.
120 to be exact.
So we need to cut.
What are we trying to squeeze in?
Some Inceptors.
Damn. Well, you'd have enough if you dropped Perdition's Edge. I thought you didn't want to take an Inceptors along with 2 jump back.
Not 1 and 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you take 2, then you could take 1. That's fine.
I gotcha.
You should always have like 2 Jints.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
is kind of a mistake.
1 is a waste. Yeah, I like the 2x5. Man, why is there never enough points for Perdition's Edge?
Games Workshop's just telling you something. So I mean that the list itself has some good bones on it. I
'Cause
would probably skew
that
if
puts
I were to make a
us.
list.
Yeah, you could theoretically drop a scout squad, but I don't know if I like that.
No.
I like having the extra scouts. All right. Well, if we don't take Perdition's Edge, then we've got enough for. You could instead of Inceptors take Eradicators. You end up with a weird amount of points left over, though. You end up with like 20 something points left over.
Like that.
Huh? You don't like that? I don't know if I like that either.
Kill him
Although,
and suggest a Yunari or two. So, yeah, so you can kind of get the idea of what we're kind of shooting for on. It's not going to be a super competitive list, obviously, because you got to tune it.
It's the most competitive list we've ever created. Sorry, I'm just trolling you all day today. I actually like this list. I think it looks fun. You've got two really big, scary things. But then you have all these other things like the 10-man Crusader squads. People are going to underestimate, and they're going to thrash some stuff. And then you have all these fast-moving units, scouts, the intercessors, the inceptors that can just like be all over the board. And then you've got some scary shooting stuff that, the Redeemer is pretty gross. The Vindicator is a lot scarier than people give it credit for. So yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely some play there. I tend to skew my lists. I'm very, Alex can tell you, but I have like a million different versions of like the same list basically,
Yep.
and it's like, what about this one? What about this one? Because he's like, oh, we need a more clickbait title for the list because it's always like something like mechanized version 1.1.0 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I'll have like little iterations of the same list where I change one unit around or something like that, and I'll go through the mental loops to try and make it more efficient before I play it. But I tend to focus and get the synergies. So I do like that people are kind of unlocking the fact that Righteous Crusaders is going to be successful in Pariah Nexus. And there's a lot of play because I think the key is that there's a lot more focus on killing things in Pariah Nexus than it was in Leviathan, where it was very much the objectives. Now there's a lot of objectives still out there. You shouldn't ignore them because they're still very important. You'll lose the game if you're not focusing on that piece of the puzzle, but you have to be able to do some damage. Your opponent is less likely to avoid what you're doing with a big block of stuff. So we had Orion on the stream. Maybe it was a stream or maybe we just had a video. I don't remember. Where we talked about how Terminators weren't necessarily so good anymore. And then that was towards the end of Leviathan because
Made me
they were
big
just
sad.
just kind of avoiding them. Now you can't really avoid them because a lot of the missions are about sitting on objectives and turning over objectives and killing the things that are on it or what have you. So it's less likely you're going to avoid them. That's one of the reasons why I think that 20-man list did so well. It's because you have 5 of them on the board. Just, I'm going to be on every single objective or I'm going to be in every single corner. You have to like do something, interact with my 20-man unit.
Yeah.
So I think there's definite play there.
Pope J-Rod says, go with the standard pattern Land Raider. But J-Rod, I don't own a standard pattern Land Raider. Therefore, it will not appear in my list. I told you I'm too old. I have 2 Crusaders and a new inbox, the Redeemer, that I need to build. Never thought I'd need to buy another Land Raider, but here we are. So this list clocks in at 1995. I think this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. List is a great candidate to not run uphold because your biggest block of infantry, the 20 man, already can get a feel no pain. Um, if you need to, you can tech into Bob. We lost your video, by the way.
No, it's okay. I'll be right back.
Okay. Um, it your biggest block of infantry already has it. Helbert can tap into it if he needs to. And yeah, so I'll post this list, guys, if you want it in the description after the video gets uploaded from there. But just to kind of rehash, go over the what it is again. We've got Grimaldus with a 20-man Crusader squad. We've got High Marshal Helbert with a lieutenant and 5 sword bros and a Land Raider Redeemer. We've got 2x10 Crusaders. We've got 2x5 Assault Jump Intercessors. A squad of Inceptors. I put Plasma on them just because I feel like we have enough anti-infantry. A little bit of extra high-strength shots, I think, work well with this list. A squad of Infiltrators. 2x5 squads of Scouts. With, of course, the Sniper, the Missile Launcher, and then dealer's choice on whatever else you want. And then the Vindicator. So yeah. So that's the list. That was fun. We should build. I should put you on the spot to build lists more often.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. It's
Yeah.
like
Next time I'll be
that's one of my
prepared where
favorite
we
things.
can put it on the channel because I wasn't prepared, wasn't thinking about doing that today, so I didn't set up the camera change to be able to do it. So, but yeah, next time for sure.
All right, for those watching, it looks like we got about 25, 26 people hopping in and out. Do you have questions? Because we got an hour to do because we don't really have topics today, so we're just kind of chatting with you guys.
We're
so.
crusading with you guys, is what we're doing.
I had to turn the fans on behind me because I'm starting to roast in here.
Getting a little toasty.
If you hear the fan in the background, let me know. I'll turn
so, I mentioned Grey Knights as allies. You didn't seem too keen on that. What do you think about Deathwatch kill teams? You and I talked a little bit about them before the stream. You can make them pretty decent in melee. They have a pretty cool heavy bolter that's both a heavy flamer and a heavy bolter, which is cool. What is your thoughts on that squad?
I don't think it's worth it unless they're very cheap. I think we can replicate a lot of the things that they can do.
Yeah.
They're basically like they remind me like Stern Guard except with power weapons. So I guess there would be more play with us, but I feel like they're going to probably pay for it. Now we can't even use the previous points that they were using, honestly, because they're updated. But I don't know. There's not enough to really kind of give me anything. No real decent amount of special rules. You'd be relying on the data sheet. Yeah.
Pope J-Rod, Grey Knights do have the Psyker keyword. They also have grenades. Okay. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if we can take anything with the Zerker keyword anymore.
Yeah, we can.
I don't think they say librarians. I think it's Surgers. No.
Let's find out. Black Templars. Index. Righteous Crusaders. Your army cannot include any Adeptus Astartes Psyker models. So
Grey Knights are out.
Great. No. Well, are they Adeptus Astartes?
Yes, they are. They better be.
They are not. Infantry Psyker, Terminator, Grenades, Imperium, Ordo Malleus, Requisitioned, Grey Knights, Terminator Squad. They are not Adeptus Astartes. So we can take them because they are not Adeptus Astartes. So.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I think they did that on purpose so that I don't know if they have the Adeptus Astartes keyword in their index. But I think they did that on purpose because they didn't want them to benefit from Space Marine rules and strats like Oath of Moment and whatever. Grey Knights.
Ooh, a super held admitting to the librarian. Don't worry, I had one painted myself. Now I won't get to use it.
Both of you are heretics. I can't believe it.
Hey, I wanted to do the librarian drop in Vanguard at least once.
So they do not have the Adeptus Astartes keyword in their codex either. So yeah. In any case, Dapper Ass Bob, how would you skew that list?
So the list that we made, I would skew it by taking probably... Honestly, I will probably go with another 20-man instead of the two split 10s. So I would go 20-man, 20-man.
Would you put a character with a 20-man?
I probably would give it a captain or a lieutenant.
That's what I was thinking, captain.
And then I would probably go with a 10-man Sword Brethren squad in Helbrecht. Now, what you could do instead of that, if you wanted to, you could go with the 10-man Terminator squad instead with the Terminator. So they're going to be about similar points. So I think the Helbrecht bomb is going to be more expensive. So maybe go with the Terminators instead of the Sword Brethren squads and just opt for not taking any of the Sword Brethren. I know heresy, but let's be honest, we're taking a lot of Crusader squads.
So, what are you dropping to get the extra sword bros and the captain?
So I would drop the Inceptor. I would take the 20-man squad, so just merge them together.
Yep. So no points difference there.
Take the Inceptors out. That'll pay for those.
Sword bros. And then I'm just doing this for points purposes so we can see what you need to do. Sword bros, 10-man. So that puts dropping the Inceptors over 95 points.
So over 95 points. Okay, so those two, I like the Vindicator in the list. So we have 2 Gent squads, we have 2 Scout squads. I would probably have to drop the Vindicator and then go with another Gent squad.
That leaves us 80 points. So a third jump pack squad.
Yep.
It's a lot of infantry, bro. 40, yep. 50, 60, 70, 80 infantry.
Yep. Now, if you wanted to save points, because how much is the points for the Helbrecht, Lieutenant, all that stuff?
a bazillion.
So
Um,
it's like 500 plus.
it's like, all right, hold on. Halberd is 120. That is not the right thing that I'm looking for. Where's my calculator? There we go. Halberd is 120 plus the LT is 65 plus 300 for the bros plus 285. 770 points.
All right. So honestly, what I probably would honestly do is I would take out that squad, and I would go with the assault terminators instead. I
Assault
think that's the more
Terminators.
competitive option. Go with the Terminator chaplain, and I believe you can still add in the ancient.
No. Chaplain can't
No,
ride with anybody.
no. Okay.
But they're the same points. So, um,
Well, then it might be a captain with the ancient because I like them. But you could just go with the chaplain. The chaplain's fine.
the chaplain is cooler.
Yep. And that'll give you the points back to get the vindicator.
Any thoughts with Paulo says any thoughts with Judicar versus with Bones versus Grimmy? Yeah, Grimmy's way better. He gives you rerolls to hit. He gives you the Fiono Pain. He has 2 extra servitors that have a 3+ save, a 4+ invulnerable, and a 5+ Fiono Pain that can tank wounds for you. And then if you don't need the Fiono Pain or you want extra damage output, you can get an extra AP for that whole squad. So Grimmy's way better for them, in my opinion.
Yes, Carlos, you could take a vindicator instead. In fact, the Reaper is pretty good.
The Reaper is pretty good. So you like over the Helbert bomb? You like the Terminators?
Yeah, I think they're going to be more durable. They do similar damage profiles
But
at the larger size.
Bros, you could also just not take the extra 5 sword bros.
You could. That'll reduce it a little bit, but
that brings you under. It keeps the Vindicator.
but still.
And gets you another unit back probably. Let me see. Let's go back to this. Where's sword bros?
So when I'm skewing a list, I want to have efficiencies and redundancies in my list. So if we're just doing 2, I feel like that might be a little bit weak. If I lose one of them, then I feel like I have to stress that one unit too much to play the game. By at least having 3, I can do more things. So do you kill the Helbert Braum? Probably. That's going to be my first target if I'm the opponent. I'm going to shoot that thing.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. You're still 25 points over. Oh, that's because we took the jump pack, the extra jump pack guy.
Yep.
Which would put us in a weird spot of not being able to afford any units, except for like a shitty captain or shitty ancient or something. All right, fine. I do like Terminators. Don't get me wrong. So here's a question then: do we keep Helbrecht for the 20-man Crusader squad?
Could do that.
And drop the captain.
Yes, you could do that.
Do we keep the lieutenant for that squad?
If you have the points.
Let's find out.
So if you can take the Terminator squad with a chaplain and Terminator armor and a Vindicator and still have points for the lieutenant and Helbrecht.
We are about to find out, boys and girls. Chaplain and Terminator armor, we still have 45 points left over. Right? Because I got the Vindicator. 10-man Terminator squad. Helbrecht, LT, Chaplain. Well, yeah. We do indeed. We do indeed. Um, Now, with this skew list, do you, because we have 45 points, do you go with skewing into Uphold with Tannhauser's Bones? Or do you go into damage with Sig Seal for the Termies? I stumped him, ladies and gentlemen. While you're thinking, I'm going to answer some questions in the chat. Carlos says, I don't have any firstborn units anymore, so could I take a Gladiator instead of the Vindicator? Yes, I don't own the Vindicator, so yes, Gladiator tank, or would a Ballistus Dread be better? They're both good. Just depends on if you need those points or not. The Gladiators are good takes. The Ballistus is also really good for its points. Don't underestimate the Ballistus. So, kind of look at your list and be like, if I had these extra points, what would I use them for? And is it to get like just some upgrade that I have points for, or would it get me a whole extra unit that can do a bunch of stuff for me? That's what you got to think about. Oscar says, I'm planning on starting a Black Templars list. Would this be a good 500-point list? Primaris Crusader, Ballistus Dread, 5 Scouts, Combi LT, and Castellan. I'd probably swap the Castellan for an actual Lieutenant. They have more options and more attacks. But otherwise, yeah, it's fine. 500 points is not meant. It's not. Well, first of all, it's not even really a game mode anymore. It's combat patrol, which is preset. You can't change it. So if you're gonna not do that, which I don't recommend because it's almost a different game. Um, if you're just gonna play regular 40k and come up with 500 points, yeah, it's totally fine. The purpose of 500 points, and we talked about this. We have a video, Oscar. If you want to go look through our videos, we have a video on how to start Black Templars and what you should buy and your first purchases and that kind of thing. And in that video, we talk about you don't need to worry about being like competitive in 500 points because the whole purpose of 500 points is to learn the game, to learn how the game flows, to learn how to use your different units. All of those units are great. So the only mistake you can really make in low points like that is buying a unit that's not going to see the table when you get to larger game sizes like Reavers or something. So yeah, it's fine. You got a good smattering of like different abilities in there to learn how the game works. So yeah, go for it. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, I have a friend that is learning the game. Unfortunately, not with me. That would be better. But he preferred to go the route of the combat patrol to kind of learn it. But I think the danger is, unless you are planning to play predominantly combat patrol, don't play so many games that you learn the rules of the detachment, which is not really even a detachment.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, because when you transition to the actual rules of the armies, you're going to be stuck in the mindset of the combat patrol. So what they do is they pared on the rules to help it ease and keep the balance for learning. So like the Black Templars, for example,
There's strats in there that aren't available in the main game. Yeah. So yeah,
and they lack rules that they actually have in the game. So
that's why I don't like combat patrol. I think it's better to just go with, make 500 points. Like I said, the whole purpose of 500 points, there's no actual 40k rules for 500 points, is learn the game. That's your objective. It's not winning or losing. Is what did I learn today? Did I learn something new about a mechanic I wasn't aware of? Did I become more proficient in moving my units around the board and making tactical decisions? That's the whole point. And the reason you start at 500 and not 2,000 is because you have less things to worry about. So you're going to make less mistakes. And so, yeah. So that's my advice. So back to the question at hand, Bob. You've had time to think. How are we spending these amazing 45 points?
I think I stewed on it a little bit. So if you're going with um, the chaplain, which we are, um, I think the enhancements has to be Tannhauser's bones. Um, Now you can do more damage. We just had this whole thing about damage in addition and all this stuff. You could do Sigmund Seal. That'll give you the 5-up critical with on the hit.
Yep.
But you need to make sure that you're using. Um, it's tough. It's tough.
Sustained hits on those guys is actually really good.
Do Sigmund Seal. I was
That's
gonna say
what
you're gonna have to tack into it.
Because then you get the points to do Perdition's Edge on the lieutenant. Now he doesn't get damage 3, but he's still strength 10 AP 3, which is gross. So and sustained and lethal on 5s. That Crusader squad is sustained and lethals on 5s. That's kind of gross.
Now, Pope, don't get me wrong. I 100% agree that the combat patrol is a good way to learn the core rules. 100%. 100%. It's great for that. I just don't think you should play it so much that you learn the rules of the detachments. I think that's dangerous because the rules are different. So that when you try and upscale to another thing, you've learned what your opponents are and what they can do or not do, and then all of a sudden you've learned things that are a little bit different, and it might be a little bit difficult to transition. So play 3-4 games with combat patrol. You learn the different things about the core rules, as you mentioned, because it is great for learning that. It takes away a lot of the extra junk, so you don't have to worry about that, and then shift up. But I wouldn't play 2 dozen games in combat patrol. I think that would be a mistake, because
you want to play a handful of games and then move into 1,000 points, where you can play actual 40k or 750.
Unless you are planning to purposefully play combat patrol exclusively, then have at it.
Yeah,
because I do think it is really good. I like how they have been balanced. Honestly, they seem to be pretty balanced against each other. So, I mean, that's good news. But yeah, that's how I would skew it.
I think we just inadvertently made a black tide list, Bob. There's 80 models in this list.
I mean, there is. You have things that are going to be not quite as skewed as or Primaris Crusader Squad as that one player did, but I like the Terminators better because they give you some hard hitting, a little bit harder hitting potential. So
yeah,
they can go against something like Knights if you need to, or if you're facing something with high damage or ability to throw down a ton of damage to weapons, you can endure that a little bit. Plus, you have, I believe, we still have those 3 Gent squads in there, the 2 scouts.
We do. You want me to run the list for you?
Yeah.
We got Grimaldus and 20-man, Helbrecht plus an LT and a 20-man, the Chaplain and Terminator armor, which, if you like the Ancient better, they're the same points. So free swap out, dealer's choice there. There's merits to both, especially if we're not going for full-on durability. The extra OC might be worth it in Pariah Nexus. You're going to take more casualties, so you're going to trigger his bonuses quicker. The what's it called? Yeah. The Ancient. 3x5 jump pack intercessor squads, infiltrators, 2x5 scouts, and then the Vindicator. So a massive horde of infantry. If you bought really big guns with low volume of fire, you're gonna struggle. So this list is pretty susceptible to blast, though. So just be aware of that. Because, but again, all your big squads have uh, leaders. So Grimaldus' squad already has access to a Field of Pain. You can get the Field of Pain on the Helberg squad or the Chaplain squad pretty easily because they're on the board. You don't have to worry about. You can just use it. Um, so yeah. So it's you get 2 or 3 big squads will have a Field of Pain, um, which you know if you got to kind of pick and choose. I think if your opponent has a bunch of blast weapons, you'll got to look at, all right, which one is the most vulnerable right now as far as getting shot the most with those blast weapons, and put that Feel No Pain on there, because I think you're going to be doing that every turn, is doing that. So yeah.
I don't know. Actually, seems kind of interesting. I might actually give it a spin.
I definitely, but I have the models to do this, so I'm definitely going to give this a spin.
Nerd
I
camp.
like it. Nerd camp. Yep, let's go.
You still have to give me the details. The
Yeah,
deets.
we haven't set the next one yet. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, I know you guys probably have seen my shorts and some recap videos. Every year, at least once a year, my friends and I rent a house up in the North Georgia mountains, and we spend a whole weekend there, basically 3 days, playing 40K nonstop. So we usually get in, about 5 games over the course of the weekend, along with some other adult activities, libations and things like that. And it's always a great time. So lots of beautifully painted armies and really cool terrain. So yeah, Bob is going to try to make it out to the next one for us. So, but we haven't planned it yet. So, in any case,
All right. So what do you got for us? I saw. Let's see. We got we talked the 500 points in the chat a little bit. We kind of built a list. We've kind of gone over the Patreon stuff that they were talking about. Yeah, so I think our meta is going to change a little bit.
mm-hmm.
So I probably will still play MSU because I like MSU. I've got the army painted. Thank you to my commission painter. A nameless demon who has also won the last Implausible Nature contest for painting competition. So he's
Yes,
now part of that.
congratulations.
So we got that. But I think honestly there is the play. I think it's very interesting that I kind of revolve around back to it again, but I think it's very interesting that there is armies that are winning games and performing very highly with these blocked units. So
Yeah.
I kind of like it. It's interesting, and it's something that I will definitely explore in my games. It'll be a change because I am so used to playing MSU like for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not opposed to playing those.
Marcus says the first 2,000 point game that you played was in 8th, and 1,000 Suns. Psyker shenanigans drove me insane as I picked up squads of Crimson Fist tax squads. So I switched to BT because I hate Psykers. Love it.
Good choice.
I love it.
Good choice.
Welcome to the Eternal Crusade. Tim Burrows says, Eradicators, any thoughts? I love the models. Yeah, they're good. They're cheap.
I use them.
We didn't fit them into these lists, but yeah, they're good. You can run them small with the 3-man squad. You can make them a blob and stick like a apothecary pharmacist with them. Um, you can you can do a number of different things with them. I would probably strat reserves them because they're slow. So you don't want them to get shot as they're trying to waddle up the board.
Yeah.
Michael
That's
asks, are dreadnoughts viable at all? 100%. Yes, there are several good dreadnoughts to run. The firstborn ones, probably not. But the Redemptor chassis ones, Redemptors, Ballistus, and Brutalis, yeah, Ballistus are great. They're super cheap. They're, what, 140 points?
mm-hmm.
And don't forget, all dreadnoughts have a 2-up save. So that's really good. 2-up save with cover in 10th edition is amazing. The Redemptor's still solid, even if it's a little pricey. And I think the Brutalis is a bit underrated. He doesn't get a lot of play, but I think he's solid. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. The Ballistus probably the best of them right now. Redemptor is decent. It's a little bit pricey,
He's
but
not
he
the
does have that
amazeballs
combination.
unit he used to be, but he's not bad either. He's a solid. He's just a little pricey, but he does have
And
minus
I
one
do,
damage, so he's pretty durable.
yeah, and I like the Ballistus a lot. It's actually I feel priced appropriately. You can add on the some long range firepower to it in your one shot crack, if I remember right.
For
Um,
which one?
no, no, never mind. I forgot. No, those are the multi meltas. I was thinking of the ironclad for some reason.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's got
yeah.
so you can add the
He's legends,
meltas.
unfortunately.
Yeah, but no, you have the ballistas out. It has the multi melta in there. It has the sweep profile with the
You mean the
talons.
you're talking about the Brutalis, not the Ballistus.
Yep, the
Yeah,
Brutalis. Yep.
Brutalis.
Sorry,
Yep,
misspoke.
yep.
Misspoke. My
I like the
the Brutalis.
talons. Um, some people like the fists. I think they're kind of to me, I'd rather have the sweep profile against some, if someone tries to swarm you with cheap infantry, um, versus the bolt rifles, which aren't that great. So that's just me, and I do like the twin multi melta on him too. Um, so um, so yeah.
Dapper asks, how would you deal with the assassins that are inbound? So we kind of talked about them at the beginning, but the two that are
Scouts.
really scary are the Ervisor and the Vindicator, or yeah,
Vindicare.
Vindicator.
Yeah.
So Ervisor, you just have to screen scouts. That's the biggest thing.
Put scouts in his
Chain.
way and make him eat scouts, and then murder him on your turn. So that's the best way. It's the same tactic that you're going to use against armies like World Eaters and Orcs. You got to screen layered screens. Anytime you have like serious melee threats that can move very fast across the board, layered screens. Make them eat cheap units, and then smash them with your heavy hitting units to blunt their charge. Melee armies like World Eaters and Orcs, it's all about um, essentially surviving the first 2 turns and then dealing damage back uh, to get rid of you know, their alpha strike units. Once you've done that, their battle plan kind of collapses, and you can dominate the board after that. So that's in a nutshell, the strategy with those armies. Um, so
So the Vindicator is a little bit more tricky because he ignores lone op. He has precision on all of his things. There's not really a way around him. So you're just gonna have to plan
Inceptors.
ahead with not having your game plan. If you do have Inceptors in your list, that'll be a way
Inceptors.
around it.
Yep.
But he still is reasonably durable.
Because they should kill him on the drop. I don't think he. Let me see if he has an invul. Vindicare. I don't
I
think
think they
they.
have a 4.
Um, going through the leaks. Vindicare. They do have a 4-up. But they only have 4 wounds. So, you know, and their save sucks. So they're basically just saving on a 4. So even if you're running bolters, 2 failed bolter uh, wounds, and he's dead. So that's the best way to deal with him. Or even scouts. Put some scouts back there.
Sniper
And
shots.
not even the sniper. I mean, just put some scouts back there and make him worry about something else. Because even if scouts are stinky in close combat, like I don't know that he's all that great. Vindicare, what does he have? He's got 4 attacks hitting on 2, strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. So he's not super scary in melee. He has a nice pistol, but he can only do that in his own phase. So yeah.
But he's gonna kill Helbrecht in turn
Probably.
2.
Well, if Helbert's on the board. Remember, he has to have line of sight. That's the big thing. Got to have line of sight. So if you can keep your boy out of line of sight or in a transport, then you'll be okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think assassins might be an option for us in some lists. Just it's worth playing. We don't know what the points are, so it might not be great. But I like the idea of throwing the Urvisor at your opponent as a distraction Carnifex.
He's definitely funny. What did they cost him in the thing? Let's look. He's 125 in the book. Now we know the book doesn't mean nothing. But
he needs to be 125 points.
Oh yeah, easily or more. And don't forget, they said specifically that there's going to be 2 points costs for Imperial Agents. One if you're taking only Imperial Agents as your army, and another if you're taking them as allies. So they're going to be more likely more expensive if you're taking them as allies, depending on what they are. Hopefully GW is smart and is like, hey, the Evisor is going to be stupid in allied armies, so he should be more. But some other units like Deathwatch are probably pretty good in their own book because they'll have strat access for certain stuff, and not as good in other detachments. So maybe they'll be cheaper. I don't know. Hopefully it's not just everything's more expensive across the board because GW.
Yeah.
So
this time is for you. We got about 15 minutes.
Yeah, what questions do you guys have?
Shoot them in.
Tim says,
remember that
I wish we had a Templar-specific Brutalis Dread. That would be neat. We did way back in the day. There was some data sheet that was Forge World or something that was, I forget what it was called. It was some weird name. Do you remember that?
I remember it, but I don't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, that's right.
I just remember that the Furioso Dreadnought that I had bought because I was like, I'm going to use this in my Templar army because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was like a 10-pound block of pewter. It literally was just like solid metal. You put it in the sock.
The dread sock.
Exactly. You always carry around a sock just in case. Who needs flipping tables when you have a
dread sock? Exactly. So, you were going to say something. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I don't remember. You killed it.
Yep.
You killed the thought.
I know. It's okay.
Dead.
Oh, it gone. But yeah. What questions do you guys have? We've got, like I said at the beginning of the stream, some interesting things going on right now as far as the different armies that are coming out. Blood Angels are I think are going to be an interesting insight into how they handle them, because they're kind of similar to us in that they have some similar style units and see how they handle them rules wise, whether they get better or worse. So,
Yeah. Couple questions rang or comments came in. One of note that I do want to mention, and then I'll get to that question, is Ben says, bring back the Chaplain Dreadnought for Templars on a Redemptor chassis. So I would like the idea of that, but in the lore, they say that the whoever that they put in the Redemptor dies after the battle because the exertion on the Redemptor chassis is too much for them to survive.
I don't think they
So
die after
you
the battle. I think they just they burn out faster. Like
yeah.
overall, they don't live as long or something, which is stupid to me. I don't. It's a stupid piece of lore. Get rid of that lore.
And then we have Bum Bumbaclarte. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. What units do you think are best to hold objectives? I'm thinking BGVs, so Blade Guard veterans with the Judy, and T-Bone could be Chonky. Yes, it could be. I tend to not want to have offensive units on objectives, though, whenever possible, unless I have something small and cheap, like a scout,
Yep.
maybe a lone op, whether it be the combi lieutenant or maybe an assassin. Um, Recently, in more of my list, this is MSU that I play. I have been using the intercessor squad to sticky it and then walk away. Um, and then I tend to use infiltrators. So that's how I defend objectives. Otherwise, I have Crusader squads that are going up and taking those 10-man squads. Those are what I typically use. You also have, for secondary play, the Jints, the jump pack assault intercessors, and inceptors, but they don't want to stay there. So that's the thing. So a lot of the missions and secondaries are about taking it from your opponent and not necessarily holding it. Obviously, you do want to hold some objectives so you're scoring primary points, um, but it behooves you to lose it, some of them, throughout the game, so that you can continue to earn it depending on what secondaries you have if you're going tactical and your mission objectives. So um,
So
I don't.
Tim, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as Blade Guard veterans, you want them in combat, so I don't
Yeah.
typically suggest them.
Uh, Tim says, why not give our Castellan a sword called Perdition's Edge, which grants him that basically gave him a permanent enhancement? You know what I would rather them do is number one, make all the warrior options exactly the same. Because yes, there's a Castellan model, but really in the lore, a Castellan is just an LT. It's just a Black Templar version of an LT. So give him all the same warrior options plus whatever our model comes with, the combi weapon. Um, and what I would rather see is instead of them having exactly the same abilities, because I always forget. I think it's like the second ability. Obviously, lethal hits, that's why we take them. But they also have target priority. This model's unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in the turn in which it fell back. Um, I would um, I would rather see target priority for our character, our Castellan, change to something that's more appropriate for BT. That's a different ability that is melee focused or something. So it gives us a reason to take that over the generic one. That's what I would like to see. So that's how I would fix Castellans and Captains. Give them abilities that are different. Keep the one, because they'll have two. Keep the one ability, but give the second ability something different that benefits us specifically.
I
Um,
like that, Tim. I like that.
so, ooh, give the Castle and Scout six. Yeah, yeah, that's a good call. Then you can stick him with 10-man Crusaders and still Scout. I like that.
Yep,
So,
I like that a lot actually. Then it's then you don't even have to give them to because they're cheap right now. You
65
don't even have to
points.
give them to a 20-man unit. Put them on a 10-man unit,
Yeah.
and then you dramatically up the damage potential of that unit for
I
65 points.
would actually like to see our at least our generic characters just get Scout 6 in addition. Make them 5 points more. I don't care. Give them Scout 6 so we can put them with a 10 man and not lose Scout. I understand like Grimaldus and Helbert not having Scout because they're kind of they would be kind of bonkers with it. Um, but the generic characters are like give them a reason to be taken. That's what I want to see. Um, J Rod asks, how dangerous will the swapping of assassins using their ability?
I think that's going to be something that we have to definitely watch for. That's one of the reasons why I think taking assassins is going to be like a good competitive take for us, because it's just like our vow, right? What do we decide that we're going to use for our vow at the beginning of the game? Well, now we can just change our assassin right at the beginning of the game. I think that's very powerful, and being able to tailor your list to the army that you're facing. Maybe you have a Zerker army, Thousand Suns. So now not only can you go abhor the witch, you can take a Selexis instead of the other ones. And then you're very, very dangerous. I think that's a very powerful, very, very powerful ability. It's something that you should definitely consider on this. I don't know how they're gonna. I haven't read the rules, so I don't know how it's gonna play with the points. I mean, do you just lose the points if
Yeah,
they're different?
so I was just looking at that. Um, it says, let me get back to it. Um, oh, uh, you can only do it if your army faction is agents of the Imperium. So you can't do it as allies. So it'll be good for them. But yes, to your point about the points, you can replace it with a different model provided the total points value of the new model does not exceed the points value of the model it replaced. And it cannot include duplicates of the same model. For example, you can't have more than one of each type of assassin. Um, so only AOI are going to um, be able to do it. So that solves that.
I still think
It's really good.
worthwhile to take an assassin.
Yeah, but you're just gonna have to
They're
plan
just
on
very good.
what you wanna do with it. So
So there is another question here. What's the opinion on the jump pack captain with a shield and hammer with 5 dudes? Find that a bit more destructive than scepters. You can wrap ingress for free. Go smash. So it's going to be more expensive.
mhm.
So that's just something to think about. But I do think that there's viability to taking a character with them, whether the captain or the chaplain. I like the chaplain a little bit more because you get the more mortal wounds on it, which is something that our army lacks in a lot of ways. But the captain also does give much more damage to that unit, so they're viable in close combat. So they can actually reliably clear something off of an objective. So it's an option for you. I definitely think that that's something you could do um, if you have the points to play around with it. Because just remember, if you're going to be doing that, that unit is small and fragile, so
Yeah.
your opponent could easily kill it.
So I would probably, if you want to run a character with them, I would probably do it only in Gladius, and the reason is honor the chapter. So you can get Lance, which is +1 to wound, which is the chaplain's ability. Then you also get the +1 strength from the captain, and then they also get +1 AP as well. And if you want to be really cheeky, you can give the captain the honor of Behemoth, which gives him in the assault doctrine, which you would be using adaptive strategy or whatever, give him 2 to attacks and strengths. So That makes him strength 10 Thunderhammer with 2 extra attacks and the extra AP and the extra wounding ability. So for the squad, so that's what I would, if I were gonna run a character with a 5-man, I'd run it in Gladius. Tim Burrows says, let's all email GW to get our Castle and Scout and keep lethals. I agree. Let's email them to get Scout and a different ability. Let's keep Scout. Just make him 5 points more, 10 points more. I'd pay a couple extra points to have Scout on our 2 generic characters. 100%.
Neil asks, do you think Vanguard Spearhead is competitive in Pariah Nexus? I do not, unfortunately. So unless you're running Ultramarines, because they do a lot of things in Ultramarines with it. I just don't think the Black Templars feed into it enough. There's a lot of cheeky things you can do with it that's hilarious that we talked about, and when our book came out, whether it be 20-man units infiltrating up, and I just think that we can replicate some of that stuff in Gladius or Righteous Crusaders, just using different units.
Yeah.
Whether it be rapid ingressing, your deep strike Terminators, or just advancing and charging, whether 20-man unit if you have Grimaldus, or if you're in Gladius, you can do that. So you have the mobility anyway. I just don't think it gives you enough in the list. If you're playing a purely keep away objective based game like in Leviathan, I think they're more competitive in that case. But now with you having to kill stuff much more in the secondaries and the primary missions, I think you need some damage buffs, which Vanguard really doesn't have beyond their, I forget the name of it, the one where you can use, if you're beyond 12 inches, you get a bunch of AP and maybe strength.
The shooting one.
Yeah, the shooting one.
Strike from the Shadows, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then their melee focused one is just the precision, which can be powerful against the right opponent, but
yeah, it's kind of.
I just.
Their big thing is like the gimmick of like, let's infiltrate a block of Terminators or a 20-man squad of Crusaders or something like. That's the big gimmick to me for them, for Black Templars. Otherwise, other factions like Ultramarines do that list better. So
they have the characters that play into it better.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so we got time for a couple more.
Castellan's got free fervent acclamations instead, plus Scout 6. That would be nice. I would almost say that would be like the Marshal's ability, since their Rites of Battle or whatever, like replace Rites of Battle with that. Get free fervent acclamation. Would be pretty neat. They need to fix fervent acclamation too. To be honest, there's zero reason why that should be in the command phase. It should be at the start of the melee, because they're all melee based. Every single one of them is melee based. Well, except for Uphold. But you're not going to get, like, except for Overwatch, you're not going to get shot in your own turn. So the start of the fight phase is when that ability should go off, in my opinion. And it would be significantly better than it is. I'd also like it if it were any unit, not just character units, but I'm not going to be greedy. If I can get it to be fight phase only, I would be deliciously good. Honestly, it should also be like Gladius, where it should trigger our relic abilities. So yeah. Oaken Shield says, does anyone know when BT are getting their codex? We are not on the leaked roadmap at all. So, quite some time from now.
Yeah,
Probably a
that's what
year.
we're gonna say. Yeah,
Probably a
at least a
year
year.
or more would be my guess. So, so yeah. Which, I don't know. I'm Bob and I are well. Bob and I can't say anything because Bob and I have some sources and some information that
We
So,
won't give
but
specifics.
we don't want to talk about that because we don't want our sources to get in trouble. But we have some information, so we can't talk specifics. But um, my concern, this is outside of any information I have, is that if the same people who've been writing the Imperial codexes write our codex, I don't want a codex because they suck. They suck. Dark Angels were terrible. AdMech was so disastrously bad, they had to essentially rewrite the book in the balanced data slate. So yeah, I don't want that person writing our book. Now, Sisters, I haven't really read too much into Sisters, but I hear Sisters are pretty good. So yeah. Um,
They're
but yeah,
kind of like Imperial Eldar is
Sisters.
what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're MSU. They take a lot of Melta. They manipulate dice.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's right. Legal cheating. Yeah. So, well, all right, guys. It is 11 o'clock. Thanks for joining us today. We greatly appreciate everyone joining in and asking questions. And I will, like I said, I'll post both those lists, the Black Tide list that we skewed into, as well as the other list, and in the description once the the thing goes live on the uploads on to YouTube because it's got to re-upload itself after the stream, and so that'll probably be later today. And thank you to all of our patrons. We greatly appreciate you. If you are interested in becoming a patron, check us out at Implausible Nature Patreon. It's like at patreon.com/implausible nature, I believe, and we've got a lot of great things, including cool swag and Discord roles and all that stuff. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.